Hi, my name is Jerry Kieffer. I've been asked by Sherline Products to do a demo on knurling today. And most commercial knurling tools, if you're familiar with knurling tools, will have two knurls within the tool, and they're clamped together to make a knurl. In this particular case, we're going to be demonstrating a single knurl used in a tool post. Now, knurls are normally used for both decorative and functional purposes, and they can be used for things like friction fitting, or they can be used on knobs that you're operating with your fingers and so on. And there are a number of knurls that are commonly made today. The first one that we're going to be utilizing and demonstrating is a straight knurl. In other words, the knurls are very straight on the wheel. However, there are other knurls available. A couple examples are in this case we have diamond knurls, and one is a male and one is a female. And it just shows that there are various types, and you can order any number of them if you take a look in the catalogs. So what we have today is just a single point knurl, which I would call a single point knurl because there's only a single knurl in it. And what I do is I go ahead and put this knurl into the tool post, which I didn't quite set up all the way here like I should have. So once I put the knurl in, the first thing I want to do when I put this straight knurl in is I want to tighten it into the tool post quite tight, because we're going to be applying some stress to that. The next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that the knurl itself is parallel to the surface that I'm going to knurl. In this case, I've machined a little section out here that we're going to knurl. So in my case, what I do to line this up is I have an eye loop, and I put that in my glasses, and I look straight down on that. And what I want to do is I want to align that knurl so it is perfectly parallel with the surface that I'm trying to knurl, and then I want to lock it in nice and tight. Okay, from this point, I'm going to sit down here on the chair, and we're going to turn the lathe on, and we're going to turn it at a slower speed, not real slow, but not real fast, and I'm going to go ahead and knurl this short surface. So once I get here, I apply the knurl, and I apply pressure, and then I back off and turn the lathe off, and I look at my knurl. Now that I've stopped the lathe and the knurling process, you can see as you look closer at the knurl that on one side of the knurl, in other words over here on the left side, as I'm looking at it, the knurl, which is not complete, it's just a half-depth knurl, is deeper than the right side per my looking at it. And the reason for that is that when I lined up this knurl, I did not line it up square with what I was trying to knurl. So therefore, I had the knurl set at a slight angle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this knurl, I'm going to loosen the post, and I'm going to shift it toward the outside. And I'm going to turn this back on, and this knurl will go ahead and pick up the track, the original track. I'm turning on the lathe, but as you can see, the knurl is not turning, but as I bring this in, it will pick up just where it left off, and it will now continue to knurl. What I've done now is I've brought that in, and I have a knurl that I'm going to brush off. And as you can see from the film, okay, that the knurl is not quite as deep as I want to go, so I'm going to do it one more time. Now this process can be shortened by using cutting fluid on this, but I'm not using cutting fluid. I'm cutting this dry in this case, and the reason for that is because you can't see what's happening with the process if I use cutting oil. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to reapply this knurl again with a good amount of pressure. I'm going to speed up the lathe just slightly. And then I'm going to back it off and shut the lathe off. And I've now completed my knurl after I brush it clean. Okay, now that we've completed the knurl at this time, I'm going to loosen the stock that I'm working with here, and I'm going to extend it out in the chuck. Okay, I'm also going to remove the knurling tool, and I want to point something out here. Normally, the manufacturer of a knurl, all knurls, the cutting surface is a single cutting surface over the length of the knurl. Okay, and as mentioned earlier, that surface, which we can see here, could be used as a knob on you know, whatever, or it could be if we had some kind of a fixture that went over the shaft and it had lost its friction fit. We can knurl that surface, and it'll raise the knurl will raise the diameter slightly of the surface, and when you apply your part back on, you'll achieve a friction fit. And this is just a couple of the many applications we can use knurling for. However, personally, I look, and many people that I talk to a lot of times, you know, if they have a knurl, they're just thinking that that knurl can only be used for that straight cutting surface like we just did. However, when I look at this knurl, I see three cutting surfaces. I see the straight surface that would knurl the wheel that I just knurled, but I also see the edge on both sides. So I see three different cutting surfaces. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this tool back in, and I'm going to show you a couple little applications that I use the edge of the knurling tool for. Now that we're going to continue with this tool, and as I mentioned, we're going to try utilizing a couple extra cutting surfaces on the edge of this existing knurl. I'm going to go ahead and put it into the holder, into the tool post, and I've now extended the cutting, the workpiece that I'm working with, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on a slight angle like this, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to turn the lathe on. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that edge up, and I'm going to cut a groove. I'm going to go cut another groove, cut another groove, another one, and another one. So in this particular case, what I'm showing is I'm showing knurled rings. And these can be used for decorative work, like if you're trying to make a pillar for something, or you've got a handle. On the end of the handle, you might want to be making some type of a decorative pattern. You can do that. Now, I've just got rings here now. Now, a single ring can be used to utilize friction fit in a very, very narrow surface. So in other words, if you were trying to put a pin into something, say like a piece of sheet metal, and you wanted to make sure the thickness, over the thickness of that sheet metal, you had a friction fit of the pin, you could come up and use that cutting surface to make that ring. Now, the reason I say that I have two additional cutting surfaces is that when I take the other side, I can put it and turn it and manipulate it into areas I can't get into on this side. So some sides I can get in, some sides I can't. I got two sides to get a shot at it. One of the other things that you can do with this, since this is on an angle, I can come up, I can turn the lathe on, and I can start and make this ring, but now I can bring the ring I can move the cross slide slightly, and I can make a much wider and even finer knurl. Okay? The problem you have is when I take this tool sometimes you'd like to have a specific width to your knurl, and the width of the tool is wider than what you'd like to have. So if you put the tool at an angle and you bring it against the angle, in other words, you move it against the angle, the knurl will come up on the material and it will produce the exact length of knurl that you'd like to have. Okay? This can also be used for decorative purposes, friction fit purposes, or function purposes. Now what I've done is I've removed the last workpiece we were working on, and I have a new piece that has a little knob on here. But in this particular case, what I've done is I have rounded the top of the knob. Okay, and in rounding the top of the knob, what we'd kind of like to do is we'd like to put a knurled surface on here that follows the contour of this round knob. So there's a little contour on top of that. Now this is normally done when you see this in knobs that are made today, and this would normally be a functional item where you're trying to either duplicate or make a knob and you want to set yourself aside from the normal person and have a little radius on top of that knob. Okay, you can do this two ways. First of all, you can go out and you can purchase a concave knurl that will be very expensive and very difficult to find, that will produce the knurl by pushing the knurl directly onto the knob. One of the other methods of doing that is to put this work stock into the lathe, and let me tighten the chuck, and I'm going to go ahead and put the tool into the tool post again. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight, and I'm going to run it straight. Okay, and in this particular case, I'm going to be doing just a little extra manipulation of the tool here. So the first pass that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to knurl the top of that radius surface, just like we normally knurled the first one that we did here. Now that we're all set up to knurl, I'm going to turn the lathe on again. I'm going to bring up the speed. I'm going to bring the knurl up and I'm going to knurl the top of this radius. Now I'm going to shut the lathe down. I'm going to check at what I've done. I'm going to bring this back and I'm going to turn the tool post and I'm going to put the knurl in at an angle, and again it's going to pick up where it left off. Okay, now I'm going to turn it a little bit more and do it one more time on this side. And now I'm going to come back and do the other side. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten this out a little bit, and I'm just going to come in and lightly touch up the knurl to pick up any imperfection. Okay, now what we've done is I had a radius on top of there, and by working this tool around, what I've done is put a radius knurl on that knob. And this will go far in duplicating an antique knob or creating a special, higher quality looking job if you're trying to do a new project. In closing, I'd like to say thanks for watching, and I hope this has been helpful. The procedures that I've used here today, I've perfected using this Sherline lathe for probably the last 20 or 30 years. And it's been very helpful doing what I desire to do. So thanks again for watching.